Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I got a familiar friend to the channel, Lee from Tesla Economist YouTube channel. If you haven't gone, go subscribe to his channel already. Awesome Tesla content. I wanted to get Lee on for a while now, but the timing is just right. I feel like now with the delivery report, production and delivery report this weekend, and Tesla price action since then. But first, welcome Lee to the channel again.
Thanks.
Let's get let's just jump right into it. It's been kind of a hot and heavy weekend. AI day on Friday, production delivery report on Sunday. Tesla stock crash almost 8.6% down on the Monday. Your thoughts on the production delivery side and the price reaction so far?
Yeah, I mean, production was the important part, obviously, and that was about what we expected, more or less, give or take. It was the deliveries that was quite a discrepancy between what we might have expected there, 22,000 vehicles different. But Elon says, or Tesla say, that they're not pushing out all this excessive deliveries at the end to peak prices for logistics and stuff. And I guess they don't have anything to prove anymore so much. They know they can make the cars. They know they're going to sell them. Why bother pushing them out that extra hard and paying the extra prices for it? And it wasn't even that big a difference relatively now, because I mean we're producing so many a quarter compared to where we were even just last year. So I mean the vehicles got made, they got sold, they have buyers, they just in transit. I mean it doesn't matter, it's not important, but that's the number that I like to focus on, and it makes great headlines. But I also think that this is possibly just a one-off thing as well. This is kind of like a lag here. So now Tesla have decided they're no longer going to push out heavily each quarter. So next quarter they're not either, but they have this extra 22,000 vehicles that they can in time deliver in Q4. And at the end, maybe it'd be similar. Maybe they won't push out towards the end of Q4, and there might be 30,000 in transit still. But then you have that 22,000 that they sold from Q3. So it may only be an 8,000 difference this time in Q4. So I think if this is suddenly a strategy now of not pushing out and they just started in Q3, then it's just a new lag that started from this Q3. And it shouldn't be prevalent in every single quarter from here on, or at least not this dramatic,
Yeah, and someone actually left me a comment. I kind of said the same thing, and they're like, "Well, in quarter four, aren't you going to see aren't you going to see a lag into quarter one?" I think what makes quarter four a little bit unique, maybe, perhaps, and we'll find out, is Tesla may pull all the stops to get all of the inventory into the hands of customers, hire overtime workers, because it is year end, and year end, right? Quarter end, maybe quarter one end, quarter two end, like I think year end may justify the extra cost to just get the delivery number into the fiscal year.
Having just said what I said, I also agree that Q4 is always their biggest quarter. Plus, Q4 is always the biggest quarter in the auto industry, no matter what. And like you said, year over year, and they do usually tend to push a lot harder then. And I mean, they already had some in inventory before this as well. So there is excess inventory, and they want to push all that out. So yeah, I'm hoping that they probably will.
And do you think the reaction that we got in the market post production delivery report is justified? Where do you and the macro, by the way, has been strong. So you would think there'd be, if macro was even flat, this would be probably greater than 10% down move. Where do you see, what lens do you see this move through at the moment?
I mean, it's not relative accurately to the difference we have here of the expectations and deliveries. Not even that there is nothing wrong with the expectations, or because the production is what matters really the most. But yeah, this is obviously, I mean, I think they're trying to build some sort of narrative right now about Tesla's demand. Right. It's like they are losing demand, maybe because of the economy. People are less willing to buy these luxury vehicles, as they say. But I don't think even if that was the case, though, we love Tesla for a lot of reasons, and one of them being like, what do they put from Shanghai? I don't know, these new Model Ys, these standard range rear-wheel drive Model Ys. I'm guessing we're probably at 35% gross margin, right? Especially after this new ramp up. Yeah. At least when this ramp up is probably now into this stage we're at. I mean, we're at something like 60,000 units just on the Model Y line, maybe even more. So up from 40,000 or something before. Those extra units, they all cost less to make relative to the previous units. Therefore, the margin has increased again. And on top of that, only recently they did increase their prices over there too in Shanghai. They didn't go up as much as the US. but that also increased their margin too, right? So they have additional margin here. Anyway, we love Tesla because of their margin. That's one of the major buffers they have. It was that
Right.
massive waiting list, which I think this is also part of the fact that the waiting list has been reducing, and people are like, oh, okay, there's not this demand anymore, right? But on top of that, I think for this quarter, towards the last month, they did push out domestic sales more because
Mhm.
they don't want as many vehicles stuck in transit on the way to Europe or Australia, despite still being 22,000 or whatever we had. So they did just push out just for China more so, which means there would be, and also of this increased production, that's a lot of supply to suddenly push out into China for 1 month. And they were offering the incentives for the discounted insurance, I guess, to help facilitate that too.
Mhm.
But next month or this month, they don't have to push out to China. They're going to probably do more international exporting, right?
Mm.
And so anyway, we have this buffer of the waiting list, which seems to have diminished somewhat this month or last month. And now we still have our other buffer, which is the huge margins,
Right.
probably up 35%. And so, all they need to do is just reduce prices and then demand should return, and reduce prices to perhaps what they were before. And their costs should still be lower as well. So the profit margins should still be higher. However, one of the issues though, is that now the US dollar is stronger. So there is less actual profit coming from these Chinese vehicles, but the
Right.
profit margins should be stable due to so much local sourcing they have. They're all made locally. It's not like they're being made in California and shipped to China. They're all being made there, and all the
Right.
parts there, the batteries are there, the cells.
True. Yeah. No, and I think, by the way, the buffer or the wait list time has actually gone back up to 4 to 8
Oh,
weeks in China.
did
I'm
it?
looking
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm looking at it right now. I saw it. The Model 3 standard range plus is back to 4 to 8 weeks. So, it's
Why?
the Model Y, I'll check here, but it's the whole demand story, like you said, it's not like, I feel like almost people think demand is binary, right? It's either
Yeah.
Tesla has demand or Tesla doesn't have demand, right? It's
Yeah.
not binary. Remember, it's quantity demanded at whatever particular price Tesla is at that moment, right? And
Yeah.
so, like you said, and I know people like this in my network, they would love to buy a Tesla should it drop back to where it was in end of 2020 prices, right? Like
Yeah.
the price hikes that we've seen, should they even go back to where they were? I mean, the amount of demands Tesla has unmet already under those
Mm.
prices is massive. And so, yeah, in that respect, I don't really worry too much about demand because Tesla can pull so many levers. There was kind of rumors out there with China. Gary was pushing this narrative as well, where Chinese consumers were waiting for October 1st because they all thought, on good authority, that there's going to be a price reduction on October
Mm.
1st. And Tesla China, they have their little PR team there, verified, and they said no, there is no price reduction coming. But they didn't verify that, or they didn't really step on that rumor until a couple days before quarter end. I think maybe even a day
Right.
before quarter end. So I'm not sure if this is like a gaming strategy where Tesla doesn't want these types of rumors to ever have life.
Yeah.
And so by addressing it when it's already too late is a signal to consumers in the future, don't believe these rumors ever. And now you're going to have to go to the
Mm.
back of the wait list and wait, to the end of the quarter again. And
Yeah,
so,
like game theory pricing.
yeah, and to be fair, Tesla doesn't want to show its hands, and wants to keep its cards close to the vest with pricing and all that sort of stuff. So, I'm not too worried about it. Like you said, the foreign exchange is going to be something to consider, but that didn't creep out of nowhere. Like we've all been seeing how strong the US dollar has gotten over the and last, let's say, month here. So, this move that we've seen here, in weakness in Tesla, seems like it's bigger than just the 20,000, for better or for worse, or for right or wrong. It seems like it's bigger than just that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like we said, the difference in expected deliveries was only like 4%. So
Mhm.
8% is massive, or 8.5, I think, maybe even it closed out or something. So yeah, so people are worried about the demand, but like you're saying, they think about it like it's binary. And Tesla have a flexible pricing model. They change their pricing all the time, and the great thing is that they've done it so often that they get away with it now, and consumers kind of expect it. It's like if you buy your car and then suddenly it goes up $2,000, and that's great. But if it goes down, then okay, that's not as good. But it's just something you expect with Tesla, and you just have to deal with it.
Mhm.
And that's just part of it. The fact is that yeah, but like you're saying, they don't want these rumors spread out and people thinking, oh, the prices are going to drop and stuff like that. And also, a lot of people are saying same with the tax credit coming in for the US. They're like delaying their Tesla and hoping they get it in January instead.
Mm.
But also remember, like the prices, I think was it $58,000, perhaps the old price before it went to 66,000,
The long
or
range. Oh,
$59,000, I think it was.
okay.
So it went up $7,000 the price,
Hmm.
but then the credit's $7,500. So if you cancelled it, then you'd have to pay $7,000 more. Sure, you'd get $7,500 back, so a $500 discount. But you'd have to wait another 6 months or so to get it instead.
I, yeah, and there's a lot of gaming that you can do with different models. Like Model 3 long range is like 57 something, I think, closer to 58,000 US dollars. And every car has to be under 55,000 to qualify
Yeah,
for the 7.5. And
yeah,
I tweeted, I said, perhaps like it's in Tesla's best interest, because we know Elon, I don't think, and this is going to be controversial in a sense, but he's said as much. Like, I don't think he cares about the additional gross margin from cars. He'd rather have price be lower, all things equal. But the problem is, when backlog is so high, you have to drive up gross margin in a way that evens out your demand to supply. Otherwise, if you don't, then you just get this mess. Like, it's already huge for some regions and some models. This like extraneous backlog of cars where people order and they're having to wait for 4 to 6 months for some
yeah.
vehicles.
On top of that,
So
though, he's got to lock in those prices and honor them. But then you have inflation on top of that, which makes it really hard, especially with inflation we're seeing right now. But yeah, I mean, they pulled the long range Model 3 now from the US, right? That's not for
yes,
sale anymore.
no,
And he said for that reason. But I mean, also at the same time, it was not qualifying for the tax credit,
no,
even though it's not that expensive a car relative to the limits that they
one.
have on the SUVs and the pickup trucks for the tax credit. But for some reason, the sedan tax credit was particularly low threshold. So I mean, everyone's got their theories on that. I'm guessing that it would make sense to have like a mid-range Model 3 instead. That would be $55,000 or around there.
Hmm.
Um, on top of that, they may need the extra 2170 cells for Model Ys in Texas still.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I do want to talk about batteries here in a second, but I guess we'll kind of tie a bow on this. So this price reaction that we're seeing down, 8.5% on the Monday after. Um, do you think this is Wall Street essentially saying, well, okay, if we're going to give you this sort of premium on growth, and now all of a sudden we don't understand why the chasm, what is there something happening here why production is so high? Do you think it's more of a question of demand, or do you think this might have something to do with some sort of externality in Tesla? Perhaps, there's been rumors of Elon is selling today, or Credit Suisse is going under, and they own $1 billion worth of Tesla. Like, where's your head at with this price move? Because it's not retail for the most part. Retail doesn't move $1 trillion stock,
Mm.
really.
Yeah, I mean, are they shorting again? Maybe I don't know. Like
Mm.
it's an overreaction in a sense, or it's manipulation, like you're saying, with larger institutions. Because I mean, and us retail investors, we're just buying, right? We're
For the
taking
most part.
advantage of it. I bought 3 Leaps today, so
Mm.
I got
Wow.
the
Okay.
2025 ones. I just look too cheap. I mean, 2025. What could Tesla be like in 2025?
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, that's how I reacted to it. But yeah, I mean, they're saying they want to hit Tesla, and it's because it's just so strong, and the stock price has been still doing so well out of the environment that we've been seeing. Um, but we'll see. I mean, well, people are saying now it's going to go even lower, but I don't know. 240 seemed pretty low.
Yeah, there are some estimates, and I just look at, for example, like someone who's a super awesome at modeling is James Stevenson with EBITDA, and I was just looking at his model, and I just remember it. That's why I'll quote it here. Something like $40 billion ish. I'm not sure where you are with adjusted EBITDA. Let's say 2023 fiscal year. You can apply whatever really multiple you want to that. I mean, 20 multiple, 30 multiple, 40, 50 multiple.
Mm,
It depends on whatever, but $40 billion is, and this is kind of like that trajectory point where, yes, Tesla's been making earnings, his EPS has been growing nice here, but we start to get to that kind of fatty part like the first little fatty part of the EPS, which I quite honestly, and I thought this last year, I'm like, oh, second half of 2022, this is it. But of course, you have a plan, God laughs. And so, a million things happened this year. But it really feels like, okay, in the next 12 months here, this is where that first little fatty part, that little fat taste of EPS is going to come in with, $40 billion just EBITDA. Like at that point, Tesla starts to, if you thought it was overvalued, it starts to show you why there is premium baked into Tesla. And then presumably if the growth story is not ending, which Tesla bulls will say not, of course, then it's okay, how much more premium does Tesla get for showcasing what they've just done?
So 2023 EBITDA estimate of $40 billion.
Yeah, let's just say for the purposes, $35-ish billion
Right.
adjusted EBITDA.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, like you're saying, you apply a multiple to that. You apply a 25 multiple, and you're at $1 trillion already. It's like, and how you say, like it's just a fat amount of income, right?
Fat amount, yeah.
But and you're talking about the entire year, but at the end, like the Q4 element of that of 2023 is probably going to be an equivalent of more like $60 billion, maybe more. I have no idea. I don't have any numbers, but you know what I mean. It's obviously going to keep on ramping up throughout the year, especially with two really big new factories.
Right.
You'd hope, at least.
Well, I was, I've talked about, and actually here, I'll pull up this banner because I think it probably makes more sense for a conversation at the moment. But I was talking to my dad about, okay, well, he's like, well, what's Tesla going to do EPS, let's say fourth quarter this year? I'm like, maybe like $2. And I'm like, okay, well, and he's like, okay, $2, annualize that, you get to 8. If you assume no growth, you're already looking at, and I'll pull up the calendar based on pricing today, 242, let's say, divided by 8 here, you're looking at a 30 forward PE based on quarter 4 2022 EPS, right?
Yeah.
And of course, it has to hit 2. Tesla has to hit 2 for this to be even accurate. But we're looking at forward PE of 30 for a company that's growing EPS greater than 100% year over year, almost every quarter.
Yeah.
So, and I get it, it's a recessionary environment. Macro is not strong. The Fed is, who knows what they're doing. And so, relative strength and Tesla's EPS. This is why I think, like you said, the quarter 4 run rate is going to be so important, because you have to bake some sort of growth on whatever quarter 4 is this year into next year's projections. If you're being intellectually honest at all with the way that Tesla's performed in the last couple of years, at least. So, let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
The growth with deliveries, though, I mean, yeah, that looks great, but also assuming the margins maintain how they are, the OPEX per vehicle keeps diminishing as well, more and more, and that actually does make quite a bit of difference when it comes to operating margin.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, we could be, we hit like 20% or so in thinking Q1 operating margin, but by the end of 2023, we could be closer to 25%. That's making it's a big difference that people aren't factoring in either, and that ends up even more in net profit in the end. So there's all these economies of scale to still kick in.
And we haven't even touched on the EV tax credit and the battery rebates and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really is a wormhole. And we've only talked about cars even, right? Like it's just anyways, I don't want to get too
coming on now as well.
Energy and
so energy sounds like it might be quite a big industry,
I mean, just a little bit. I think we might need it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Lee, on AI Day as well. That happened on Friday, and the Tesla bot and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is that okay, so you hear people saying, oh, they're like 5 years behind Boston Dynamics or something like that, or they're, but it's you've got to get your head around that this is a mass-produced robot with parts that are abundant and affordable, and that's what they're making here. They're not trying to make a robot that can do backflips and parkour. They're just trying to make one that can go from A to B carrying a box, or and like you saw the way it picked up that watering can, right?
Yeah, that was simulated though. I believe that was simulated.
It was simulated. Oh, okay.
I think so.
But it was still like it was done properly. It didn't like spill it or anything. It like surely that can't be easy to do. Yeah. So I think it's exciting, right? Sure, it doesn't move very fast yet, and it's got a long way to go. But it didn't take a long time to do this, at least achieve this much. I'm surprised they even had a walking robot. That's probably hard enough. And also comparing to the Boston Dynamics robot again, look how much slimmer this one was. It was so much thinner. It was more like human proportions. it was impressive for me anyway. I mean, I'm not a robotics engineer, but yeah, I thought it was impressive.
It's if you look at and it's putting the brain in the robot really is like the unique Tesla advantage. A couple of points on the Tesla bot I'll make is number one, I don't have to be excited by it. I if and only the engineers that want to work for Tesla in the future slash work for Tesla today are excited by what's happening there, that's mission accomplished already. Because when you have a group of intellectually bright, smart, honest people that are working towards a mission. It doesn't matter what the end goal of that mission is. Sounds so corny. It's not the destination, it's the journey, but it's true because you never know what spins out from that lab or whatever technological findings come out of there. So I think the biggest thing to realize is like if Tesla can build a world-class facility and already has where every like the smartest, brightest, intellectually honest minds in the world want to work at, that's mission accomplished in and of itself. Um, but you're right. The bot is, I'm on team skeptical of bot. I didn't understand it. AI Day, I can't say when I was listening to AI Day 2, I had any idea what was really all the detailed findings of it. But
It went over my head a little bit.
yeah, and I'm trying to zoom out. I'm trying not to miss the forest for the trees here a little bit. But I it's not a net negative, at least, right? Like, so even if you're the worst of Tesla skeptics in the Tesla bull community on the bot, you can't argue it's a negative because you're attracting all these engineers, and Elon really believes in the bot and the future of it. Another point I wanted to make on the AI on the Tesla bot was the hardest AI problem probably is driving or flying, right? Like driving or flying, one of those, probably even driving more so because in flying you don't really run into
I'd
too
say
too
so,
many
yeah.
people. So if you're Tesla solving almost for like one of the hardest solutions with AI, and they just probably realize like, wait, why can't we just already solve for this bot to walk to X room, water this plant, and then come back, or deliver this box to the shipping container and then come back? Like these are very rudimentary things when you're trying to solve for something as dangerous as driving is and how
Mm,
intricate driving is. So it's just from that perspective, it started to click in where it was like, what Tesla already is doing all of the hard work with the brain part when I drive. And now you're telling me, do I believe Tesla can build a bot where it can walk to a room, deliver a box, and come back? Yeah, like come on, like that's like it's like that's how it clicked in my head a little bit. Was like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, now I get it.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, how the point was it's mass produced and affordable parts and stuff. But the other point was the brain. The fact it can judge distances and see objects and pick them up and carry them and like. But they've already done that software, and
Hmm.
I think a robot probably is easier than a car because you don't have the risk of running people over or anything like that or crashing. It's just going to bump into a wall or fall over or something.
Yeah.
There isn't that element of risk. So surely it could be easier. I'm guessing, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word.
Well,
um,
yeah, like relatively easier, of course, right?
yeah,
At least the brain part of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
and they're the two things, like the mass production side and the brain thing. It's a robot that's not going just off a program doing what it's told. Also, the battery life as well, I thought was a big deal. Like I think Boston Dynamics, they just last a few minutes doing all this stuff, and they're running on hydraulics to do amazing things. Whereas the actuators, a electric motor powered instead with the Tesla bot, and like you say, it said it could last a full day's work, which is huge. I mean, there's no point having a bot if it's just going to last 5, 10, 20 minutes or something. You
right.
need it to do a full day's work. So
Hmm.
um, they're the things that I thought meant the most.
Yeah, wireless charging when you're sitting down on a chair or something, like
Yeah,
stuff like
right.
this.
Well, I mean, there's no reason you couldn't just have a cable and plug it in, I'm sure, while it's working on the production line anyway,
Plug
just to
itself in.
charge every now and
Yeah,
then.
can you imagine that? You just see a Tesla bot plug itself in.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, seeing it at that station at Fremont, you could just imagine in a few years' time, like seeing a Tesla factory and just how many of these bots are there doing all their stuff. It just seems inevitable almost.
Yeah, and I see this is a private stream, but I see some Patreon members posting in the chat. Sanju here, last mile delivery to complete with Amazon. That's a great use case for Tesla Bot. Is like that little last bit that often requires so much human intervention. Pressing the elevator button. Oh, the elevator is broken. Let's take the stairs. Where are the stairs?
Mm,
Stuff like
right.
that where like you
Mm,
can't automate that. Amazon bothers me every day, buzzing me in, right? Like there's like so many little things that I think or it's like the last little bit of solving for something can now be
Yeah.
tied
Yeah.
with the
Well, I
market.
mean, they could have autonomous delivery vans or probably already, or more or less. So you have a delivery van, but who gets the package out and puts it at your doorstep?
Mm-hmm.
You still need a human though. Even if the car can drive itself, then it's kind of superfluous if it can, if you still need the human to get the package out and deliver it. Whereas
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
is that extra step, like you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me, it reminds me kind of the. You guys ever hear about or you in New Zealand? You ever have those like Pizza Hut cars that were like the ones with like they would just put the box in the back and you'd have to run out, grab the box from the car as like
No.
self driving or whatever. It was like a pilot project that Pizza Hut I think did. I don't even know where, but that's kind of the vibes I get from it. Anyways, we're talking 10 years down the line, probably, hopefully closer. But let's talk more. Let's talk more myopic, shall we? Tesla quarter three earnings and the preview. Of course, we know deliveries are really only what's going to hit the revenue line, not production. I mean, if anything, there might be increased OPEX costs from the production. But where are you at with adjusting your quarter three earnings report, if at all, other than just subtracting maybe like $1 billion from the revenue? Um, Talk to me about quarter three earnings preview and where you kind of see this earnings report.
Yeah, I mean, I'm adjusting my my forex position, obviously, like reducing the amount of profit from there, and then obviously just reduce the number of deliveries. But I'm hoping there'll be some energy increase as well. I'm thinking now with the LFP cells, maybe we're at 25% gross margin finally.
Okay.
Would you have any guess at what we might expect there for margins on going from?
Grow
I mean,
auto gross margin X ZEV credit.
no, just for the just for energy
Oh,
now.
energy. Pardon me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of people smarter than I saying, "Well, finally going to see some positive numbers from the energy side." But I mean, you would know more than I. What are you thinking?
maybe 20% margins. Yeah, up from 0% or so. Yeah,
And
but
is that just from the Lathrop factory production? What's
no, I think it's just from moving over to LFP from 2170s.
okay?
Yeah, because they had, like we were saying, I think there's just been like an influx of LFP cells coming in China with these new factories just coming online more and more. They've been making them for years, and now I think they're all just kind of building up, and suddenly they're flooded into the market. And Tesla was saying, "Oh, we finally have enough cells. We can get into energy. We're not constrained there anymore." But yeah, the new factory as well. That's what really matters, because they're still going to be at low quantity with energy until that factory's up, and then we've got 40 gigawatt hours a year coming out of that, which is going to be a big difference. It's like 10 times what we have now per quarter. And then if obviously it's Tesla's manufacturing plant, right? So their core strength is supposed to eventually be manufacturing. So we could expect that there should be some pretty good manufacturing going on for megapacks in there, thus reducing cost further. So maybe 35% margin perhaps we might see from there, and 10 times the supply as well. But I mean, have you heard anything of when this plant's supposed to come online? It was I think September last year when they broke ground.
Yeah,
So
no
it couldn't
idea.
be too far.
Could be too far. I
And
mean, yeah, but so are you thinking it's going to be a material enough effect, let's say, to operating income line where it'll make a material a material movement in the operating income for Tesla this quarter?
not Q4. I think Q4 we might get maybe $100 or $200 million gross profit. But
Okay.
when the new factory comes online, I think it could be $2 billion profit a
Very
quarter.
fast. Oh wow. Okay.
When it's ramped, however long that takes. But
Right.
I mean, it's still not a huge amount relative to the vehicles as gigawatt hours are concerned.
But it
I
does
guess they.
open up a new door, right? Because
Oh yeah, yeah.
now all of a sudden, like to be fair, I mean, I don't even project for energy in my back of the napkin Tesla valuation or anything like that. I reckon a lot of analysts don't. So yeah, I mean, as soon as it starts really being, I mean, 2 billion is, I guess, percentage wise, not a lot for Tesla, but I mean, 2 billion is 2 billion still.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then how do you see are you on team huge gross margins this quarter, or there was like this meme going around Twitter with everyone saying it's gonna be like 50%, but do you think it's gonna be materially higher than last quarter?
Yeah, I mean, the US for a start, that's got to be higher because more price raises are going to kick in, and I'm not of the belief that Tesla's costs have gone up that much. For
Mhm.
starters, I think that they had locked in these contracts either way. These commodity prices, these are just like the market prices. Tesla has contracts maybe, I don't know, for 10 years or so. And Elon has said that they have long-term contracts. So I think with the prices going up, it's just almost pure margin, along with other reasons for costs to go down. This is just for Fremont. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Texas is a bit different, obviously. China, I think the margins are definitely up last month because of this ramp up. However, we did have the time the lines were down, so that might have affected them a little bit. But I mean, I'm hoping China should be, we're including those lines down, maybe 34, 35%. But Fremont could be really high. It could be, I don't know, 38 or something.
Well, the mix is really awesome this quarter, right? I think Tesla produced the most S and X's in many years in Fremont this quarter.
Like, I think almost since the Model 3 came out.
Right. And so that's dramatically going to push up ASP this quarter then.
What do you reckon the margins are on those? I mean, they've raised the prices a lot on those already.
A lot, yeah.
And they must have been pretty profitable, but it was still older manufacturing techniques used and all that.
Yeah.
Have you been in a plant yet?
No, I haven't actually. I was offered to sit in a plant by someone in the chat once, but it didn't really materialize into anything. But since the last time we talked, I have been in FSD beta now for the first time. Yeah, cool. which we can talk about later. But that grows. So all in all, so tying, let's say Shanghai increase, but also the factory upgrades, higher S and X mix this quarter. Where do you reckon, if you were just to throw out spitball a gross margin number, a range or whatever you want for this quarter, where would you currently be sitting at for that? And I won't hold you to
it. And including FSD and credits?
Let's say X credits, but yeah, including FSD.
Right. I mean, credits aren't that big a deal now relative to the income anyway. So 33 to 34 perhaps.
Okay.
Perhaps. I mean,
that's quite
nice. Yeah. Was it 32.9 we had in Q1, including credits? I think, maybe.
So X ZEV credit Q1 was closer to 30, maybe even a little bit over from the chart that I'm looking at very squintly right now.
Right.
Last quarter was closer to 25 X ZEV credits.
Yeah.
And mind you, this is auto. No, actually, this is total gross margin, so that does include some energy costs in there as well.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. I mean, Elon's been on record to say how deflationary commodity prices have been in the last little bit. I 35% probably with credits. I'm not sure how much credits are, so maybe closer wherever you are. It kind of sounds, I mean, on like right in line. Maybe that's uber bullish to even say, but I mean, it's the prices that there's a reason why Tesla has questions about demand. It's because ASP is like so high where it's like so juicy every time someone takes a car that, Tesla's making so much money on it.
Yeah. Model Y long range is up $16,000 from like this time in 2020. That's all profit. $16,000. That's massive.
It's massive. And to be honest,
before then the margins were still like 28% anyway.
Exactly. And to be fair, I think FSD take rate might have gotten demolished this quarter because of the 15, because now it's 15 grand or wherever it is now for FSD. But I don't think
that would have been people probably who bought it before that price raise had gone up and they received it.
That's true, actually. That's a good point. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it seems like Tesla can give, and this is like the relation that you often talk about with demand and margin. If demand ever wanes, just lower margin, demand will go up, vice versa. But to be fair, I think it's almost like it's almost too much to even talk about. I think everyone is almost wasting a lot of time talking about demand in like the short term, because we have the EV tax credits, $7,500 to US consumers coming up in the new year, which is, I mean, going to take demand to that, even that next tier. Do you reckon that Tesla increases prices because of that EV rebate?
Yes, I think so.
And so if Tesla does this, obviously that doesn't fit into the whole story about demand, but everyone thinking demand is waning. But how does Tesla do this in a way that's like, you know, to be fair, like this is where I'm coming at with this question, because I feel like Model 3 prices are already too high for what they need to be. Now, of course, the market disagrees with me. That's why everyone's lining up for this. So it is irrelevant what Yashu thinks about the prices. But how does Tesla continue to raise prices, which is obviously like the best long-term strategy for their bottom line, but then knowing one day they're going to have to lower prices for whatever reasons that they want, because there's going to be a day where Tesla will lower their prices. It's the auto
Mm.
business. To really get to scale, we're going to have to drive down costs. Like the Model 3 can't cost $60,000 forever, right? And here in
Yeah,
Canada I
they
think it's
can't
like
make 2 million, 3 million Model Ys at $60,000. And
right. So I mean, just brain dump, but just feel free to kind of comment on all of that.
right. I mean, for starters, we aren't 100% sure that the rear-wheel drive Model 3 will even be be eligible for the tax credit, right?
I think it was. I think Sawyer confirmed it was, but don't
Oh,
quote me on
really?
that.
Did he? I think Troy might have said something that it might not be, and I think soon we are going to find out. They're actually going to say like there'll be a list of cars that are eligible or something. But I mean, okay, if it is, then I mean that's huge. That's a huge deal. Like because supply and demand, when you're already on the lower price scale and you lower the price $7,500 more, then the demand just goes up exponentially more, which is why I think you're going to end up with a 1 year waiting list again,
Right.
and they're going to have to raise the prices for that. But we hopefully have a Model Y from Austin coming as well,
Right.
which might be $60,000 again, which would then be $52,500, which sounds a little bit cheap, right? For lack of a better word.
Right.
So the demand for that would just be crazy. They have to raise the prices again on that. I think the demand would just be too much, and this is just for the North American market, obviously. How do your prices in Canada differ from the US?
I think just tack on like 30 or 40%, whatever the exchange rate is. I haven't done the math on it, but like a
Right,
model, a refresher, a Model Y in Canada is the base, the long range, which is the only one that sells $85,000 Canadian.
right.
Yeah.
So about the same set.
Yeah, just currency there. But how do you? And I see Richard here in the comments saying like, if there's a recession, how do you do that? Like, Tesla in the recession and the pricing model. Like, part of me, like the economic side of me, is like, okay, raise prices where there's only a month worth of backlog. Continue to satiate demand up until there is a backlog of that month. Should that month backlog reduce to a week or two, which by the way, like when we took our car delivery in 2020, end of 2020, we ordered it beginning of December. We took delivery in 3 weeks. Like this wasn't normal for Tesla to have this level of backlog before. So, and no
Mm,
one was freaking out back then about Tesla's demand issues. Um,
mm,
Part of me is like, okay, we'll just raise the prices, satiate demand up until there's no more backlog, and now they don't have a buyer for their car, which is going to be hard for them to do, really, unless they really increase prices, and then slowly reduce prices like how a typical auto would, to start finding more demand, more and more, until let's say that 1 month ish. Because I think like 1 month is kind of the sweet spot, 1 or 2 months maybe, of where you want to be at with every
mm.
model. Um, but then the other side of me is like, just keep it at a price where you think it competes well across its peers. Um, Maybe that's not the best metric, because EVs in general are lower cost of ownership anyways versus gas cars. But price it where you want to price it, and if the backlog is 6 months, let it be 6 months, and just continue
Mm.
to hit on it. But like, what do you think about that, and especially specifically like the recession that may
Yeah, I
affect it?
mean, the pricing isn't relative to what Tesla was before. It's really relative to the competition in a sense, right?
Mm,
So it's like aggregate demand for EVs would reduce. It's not like just Tesla's demand's reducing.
mm,
So demand for all vehicles would be reducing. So in the global financial crisis, we went from like US went from like 16, 17 million cars sold a year at the peak to about 10 million or so at the bottom in like 2009, I think. So
mm,
that's quite a drop, but that's still 10 million cars a year selling in the US. It's not like suddenly no one's buying cars. So Tesla there's still the demand, aggregate demand for cars. It
right.
would just mean that Tesla would have to lower their prices more relative to the rest of the cars, their demand, and they'll find their demand again. And but on top of that, a Tesla does come with lower costs as an electric vehicle, so there is that intrinsic value there of the cost savings in addition to that, which the discrepancy really is like the cost of ownership over, say, 5 years, which, as we know, Tesla has a lower cost of ownership anyway. So when Tesla lowers their price, it is a higher percentage lowered of the cost of ownership for a Tesla compared to an equivalent ICE car. You follow me there?
I do, yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore, demand should increase relatively more for a Tesla if they lowered their price, say $5,000, compared to an ICE car lowering their car price by $5,000, the equivalent version.
So, okay, yeah, go ahead.
So eventually, yeah, basically, I mean, even in a recession, I think, you know, that they'll find their market clearing price eventually, and maybe, like you say, maybe just have a 1 month or 2 month backlog, and ride it out that way. But it'll be the competition that suffer more. It just means that Tesla will have a higher market share relative to this. Their margins may be down a bit, but like we said, they have a huge buffer of margin, and they'll still continue to be massively profitable. Meanwhile, the competition are suffering. They're selling less. They probably have to cut back on supply rather than cut costs because they don't have that luxury of the high margins to deal with. So therefore, there's less supply, meaning that that Tesla has more supply relative. So that demand from their supply would turn to Tesla as well. So I think, you know, that Tesla can weather the storm. It's the others that can't. And sure, Tesla's profits may reduce somewhat, or their margins at least, but they'll get through it the other side and be better off in the long run through the other side, whereas the others would have had to maybe discontinue models or face bankruptcy potentially, you know?
Yeah, relatively speaking, for sure, the EV industry, like what makes this recession different, and it really feels like since the last time we talked, like we talked about jokingly, like we're in a recession now. It really feels like there's like a looming thing towards the end of the year if the Fed continues to hike rates as much as they say they're going to. But it feels like this recession, of course, is different because there are other options for people that are buying cars, and that's to go electric. So, like you're saying, the relative strength will be there, but it almost feels like we're going to live in a world then, it seems like, Lee, where um, simultaneously people are going to say Tesla's demand is going down, and at the same time Tesla will have to increase prices. Like both of those things can't jive together. It doesn't make any sense because of this EV rebate, this $7,500.
Yeah, I mean, the price of the car to the consumer will reduce, but Tesla's price that they receive
I see.
will increase.
Right. Okay.
Funded by taxpayers.
Yeah, but like you said, like, you know, what's funny is, you know, if the local Ford dealership does a price reduction for all their cars, I don't get there's no Bloomberg article on my local, you know, like there's no, oh, Ford cuts costs of cars like 10% off of all Canadian lots. Like, you know, dealerships are, you know, every day haggling and you know, commissions and all this stuff that you're not going to hear about. So I do find it ironic where like Tesla, should they even move the dial a little bit, let's say next week they reduce prices $1,500 for all of their vehicles, something, you know, there'd be mass amounts of news stories out there talking about Tesla's collapsing, demand is waning. Like, it's just hilarious, right?
Yeah, I mean, but Ford and places like that, they really do have a demand problem because everyone's moving to electric. So that is a big deal.
They don't have a demand problem, Lee. They have a chip problem apparently, and then next year it's going to be a financing problem. So, you know, they're going to be moving the goalposts. Let's talk quarter 4, and specifically quarter 4 run rate. A lot of people talk about, okay, you know, we take quarter 4, annualize it, and we're talking, I think, on DMs about September, for example, and like the Tesla China September numbers, and, you know, potentially that will be a better signal for us to find out how production is doing, and then of course extrapolating that out. How do you look at the end of the year, specifically like the run rate on, you know, if you want to talk deliveries, let's talk deliveries. If you want to talk earnings, whatever it is, the end of the year run rate for everything, and how do you project that into the following year?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've got these new factories, I guess, are going to come down to the numbers really, and what happens there more than anything. And okay, initially we were told that Berlin would hit volume production by the end of the year, and now the start of next quarter instead, which is like over 20,000 units a month, which is a big boost, like over 60,000 a quarter. And I don't know what Berlin probably did this quarter, but nothing like that. It's going to be a huge jump, obviously. And Fremont is getting a bit of a boost too, apparently. So that's good. And then we'll have hopefully a full quarter of China going, full steam ahead with all this new ramping up, seeing what that's capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's rumors of 100,000 units a month, perhaps as much as that. But even if it's 90,000, that's 270,000 there. And you add Fremont onto that, and perhaps you're at 430,000 already. So that's a good start. Plus, if those 22,000 extra vehicles that weren't delivered in Q3 get delivered, then we're at 450,000. So if you have just 50,000 collectively from the other two factories, then you're at 500,000 for the whole quarter. I'm not saying that they will hit that. I'm just saying some numbers out here.
Yeah.
Berlin, we'd hope Berlin does something. They've got the sales. They don't have to be concerned about 4680s. Sounds like BYD is supplying quite a lot for them if they're intending on hitting volume production. So that's not the issue. I guess I don't know why it's still taking so long to ramp up, and 1,000 units a week supposedly a big deal. But
2,000
I think
actually now, I think, right?
Is that right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think and I'll try to pull it up here if I can. I think Tesla tweeted out just a couple of days ago actually that they've produced 2,000 in Berlin in a week. Yeah, 2K Model
right.
Y, Model Y specifically in Giga Berlin.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say, but it will jump up quickly when it happens. Suddenly it's like just turning the dial of the production speed, and suddenly, we're at 2,000 a month.
Yeah. 2,000 a week. Sorry.
So a week. Yeah. That's quite a big deal. So yeah, I mean, then 3,000, 4,000, but probably sometime this quarter, and then 5,000 next quarter, or next in January, hopefully. But I mean, really, like Texas though. What about Texas? That's they don't have an abundance of sales there. We're limited with 2170 sales, so that is more of a deal. I don't think they'll resort to a rear-wheel drive Model Y there with LFP cells, even if they had abundance of LFP cells. I mean, Elon said it's not enough range for the US market. So I just don't think they can ramp up much, because they'll deplete their 2170 supply too quickly. Hence why while it's also stopping possibly the long-range Model 3 to free up more 2170 cells. And now also moving to LFP for energy, freeing up more 2170 cells on top of that. So I think it'd be tough to even go more than like 1,000 units a week to maintain that without 4680s.
Yeah, and actually, perfect segue. Thank you. 4680 concerns. Now, I think Elon said, actually, I forget what call this is, but he did say 2022 isn't the year where we're really worried about battery cells for the most part to hit our overarching 50% goal. It's chips. And it seems like people haven't talked about chips in like 8 months, other than if you're part of legacy auto Facebook groups or something. 2023 really is the year of, okay, Tesla has to figure out some sort of mix that works for them. Of course, everyone thought, okay, 4680s are going to rule the day with Cybertruck and semis and adding supply there in Austin. Where's Tesla at with 4680s? Are you worried about it? And if not, what mix can they have as a backup to still hit their, let's say, 2.1 next year?
Well, I think they've mitigated that in Berlin, like I was just saying, with the LFP sales and just doing rear-wheel drive versions. But I don't know what backup there is in Texas, really. Like, other than, again, like I said, doing rear-wheel drive versions there as well for LFP. And I think other than that, you're probably stuck at maybe 1,000 units a week with 2170 sales. But they've bet the entire company. They've bet a lot of the future on 4680 sales. And okay, they could. The main issue we're hearing is the dry battery electrode process for the cathode.
For the anode, they've sold like the.
Pardon?
For when we talk about 4680s, and for those that who might not be aware, let's say cathode anode, can you explain that for us, and what specifically makes the DBE process so much more cost effective or scalable than the wet slurry process?
Sure. I mean, it's just the fact that basically you've got 1/10 the footprint of that process. It's much better for the environment. Also, the solvents aren't necessary, so it has better conductivity. So it gets more power and more energy density, lower cost, and just a faster production process in a smaller footprint. So apparently the anode process is harder to achieve than the cathode process, and they have achieved the anode process. I mean, so that's huge. They've done it. They have done the cathode process as well. They just can't. They're struggling to scale up. Last I heard, yeah. But there is so much riding on that they aren't just sitting by idly hoping something's going to happen. There's trillions of dollars on this if they get it right, or when they get it right. And also the Cybertruck is dependent on it. And basically the largest factory in the world is dependent on them sorting that out. But I mean, they could, worst case scenario, I guess that, they could still go for 4680s and just do the wet slurry technique as well with the cathode. So I mean, that's probably the worst case scenario, I would hope.
Okay. How much of a delta is that, let's say, if cost or scalability wise?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, they'd probably need to build a new facility there perhaps for it.
Okay.
And I mean, if you look at the size of Giga Nevada compared to that new battery factory we've seen in Berlin, and Giga Nevada is like 35 gigawatt hours a year capacity, and Berlin is supposedly 50 gigawatt hours. It just goes to show how small the footprint is with the dry technique.
Right.
It's such a big deal. I mean, and then when you think about scalability wise as well, how many batteries they need eventually in time, how much like Giga Nevada took 2 years or something to build, quite a while. So think how much easier it is to build these smaller factories for more batteries.
Yeah, and we actually just got news today that Giga Nevada, they're looking to expand as well. Did you see that headline?
No.
Yeah, and we don't have to get into it because you haven't analyzed it. But yeah, there's headlines out that Tesla's looking to expand Giga Nevada and their footprint there. Probably around the semis is my guess. But
yeah. You think that's where they'll keep making them?
I mean, I don't know. Like, by the way, where are the semis? Like, weren't the semis supposed to be delivered to PepsiCo in like January, February? It feels like it's been a while since.
I think that was according to Pepsi. I don't think Tesla ever said anything official on that. Yeah, that was at the same time as the Hertz deal had been announced, and the stock went running, and everyone got really excited and thought, "Wow, this is it! It's finally off again." And yeah, that didn't happen.
But back to the 4680s, even for a second, like. This is so important, like you said, to the future growth of Tesla, and really, like, it's a step change in margin. Even like it's a better margin effect with 4680s once at scale. Let's say. So I guess suppose Tesla could give back some of those with the wetter slurry process, rebuild stuff, retool factory lines if they have to. Of course, give up some margin, but still stay steady. Scalability might be a little bit different. But it is true that, like, okay, let's say spring of next year really is when we really, like, by that time, does that sound about right? Where we really have to start seeing like massive production come out of Austin before it's like a real big concern. Because at the moment, it's like, okay, everything is kind of churning well. Yes, ramping takes time, but let's say spring of next year or something, Austin is not at like production level where it's like meaningful. Cybertrucks are going to suffer, and again, Cybertruck timeline might be pushed out again. Is that kind of the timeline that you look at for pushing the panic button, so to speak?
I mean, last we were told from Elon was that he hopes to hit high volume production for the 4680s this year, still this quarter, and at worst case scenario, like early next quarter or next quarter, I think maybe. So.
Was it Drew Baglino that said on the earnings call? I forget what number he cited that he hopes to hit of 4680s production by the end of the year, and he said hopefully way before the end of the year. Do you remember what that number was?
I think perhaps, and I think what I was referring to was Elon on the shareholder meeting. But yeah, you're talking about the Q2 earnings call with Drew and Elon, which was a similar sentiment again. Both of them saying that, and yeah, I mean, so I guess we are still somewhat expecting that this year or next quarter, and like apparently they've done it, they've achieved it. The science has been proven. The rest is just an engineering problem of figuring out how to engineer it. So like that, I guess that is the hard bit has been done, and like I say, so much is riding on this. The entire Cybertruck, the most pre-ordered vehicle in history, And
Yeah.
the margins on the Cybertruck are going to be nuts, aren't they?
Yeah. Actually, if you want, do you want to spend a little bit of time on the Cybertruck? I don't think I've gotten your take on the like everyone talks about the Cybertruck margins now. It's like the new hot topic to talk about. Of course, I like the Cybertruck not because I have one on order or anything, but just because I think it'll open up a new segment of Tesla investorship, Tesla ownership. This group of people that I mean, you could probably paint with a broad brush and say like construction worker, general contractor types that have the Ford F-150 are loyal to their pickup trucks, and that's all they care about, and hate EVs today. They paint, they think EVs are just a facade and a political agenda for the greenwashing. Like, I feel like that's the pool of people that the Cybertruck will open. So, in middle of next year is really when we're still aiming for first deliveries of this thing. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Elon said volume production mid next year at one time. But I'm not sure he meant that. In fact, that was the last one he did say at the shareholder meeting. But I think he actually meant either start production middle next year or volume production end of the year, which is what he has said in the past. So yeah, I mean that's the aim, and we've seen the production line setting up. They're setting that up there. We've seen this insane gigapress. They're not messing around. It's all it's all happening. They're doing it. Just need the battery packs, but yeah, the demand will be crazy, and the margins. I mean, it sounds like they're possibly starting with the quad motor version first,
Right.
and I mean, how much is that going to be? How much would that cost? I mean, like $90,000 maybe. I mean, well, you got the tax credit as well. So I think the pickup trucks were they capped at 90,000? Was it, or 80,000 perhaps?
I don't recall. I don't remember.
I think SUVs were 80,000. So, and maybe pickup trucks were more. I don't know.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'd want to keep under that cap. So maybe it'd be the tri-motor first. But on the other hand, that quad motor is going to be amazing, and people will pay whatever for it.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like, and this is, of course, it's going to piss off so many Cybertruck reservees that now they're going to have to, Tesla's going to have to go back on their prices on them, which it's like what? So you'll have it like at $40,000 a Cybertruck reserved, like, which would be killer if Tesla ever honored that, which I don't think they will at this point.
That price is crazy now when you think about it. 40,000.
It is nuts. Yeah, that's just inflation right there. So
yeah, well, I mean, maybe somewhat, or the demand as well. I mean, they didn't know what the demand was going to be back then either. But if they were announcing $40,000 back then they probably had an idea that we can do it for 40,000 and still make 30, 35, 40% margin still. So that cost base has probably not changed much, maybe even reduced. They found new processes and new techniques. That 4680 battery obviously is going to cost a lot less. So you just wonder, like, okay, so they can make this vehicle super cheap. I mean, it's been designed around how to manufacture a car at extreme speed and low cost, and then the result is this Cybertruck shape, so the cost is just going to be so low, and the production speed should be fast eventually when it's all working. So now that the demand is that high, the prices are going to be that much higher, and the margin it's just going to be crazy, especially when you add FSD into it on top of that. I mean, we're going to hit like 60% margin, like more.
Yeah. Well,
it's crazy.
What are they going to do? What are they going to do with that damn wiper? Did they ever figure that out?
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. I just like I don't like the look of it.
I think Elon said it wasn't permanent last time.
Right.
And there was the talk about lasers instead.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to delay it another year or two, maybe we can talk about lasers on that. It's
but they've had so much time since the initial launch of that car to refine it and improve it and think about it and get all the feedback from all the other people. And they've also tested the market and realized, okay, this is seriously popular. We can put in a bit more time, effort, capital, resources into making this as amazing as people want it. What it's with the new specifications, we don't even know what this car is capable of yet. We don't even know what the Model Y 4680 specifications are. How fast it charges or anything like that.
So if Tesla out of Austin, let's say, can do 1,000 4680 packs per week. What mix do you give that? Let's say next year. Let's say next year, things don't go as planned, and they're still at that, like, say 5K per month of worth of packs. What mix do you give between Cybertruck and Model Y for the 4680s if you're Tesla? Do you just go full Cybertruck with those 4680s?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean,
Yeah.
the margin will be there. They want to get that vehicle out. And perhaps the Y just uses 2170 still.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. I think the priority really should be, let's get the Cybertruck launched, even if it's at low volume for now, which I guess
Mm,
really isn't Tesla's MO, right? Like, they don't like to launch something unless they know they can start hitting volume production with it,
yeah.
because otherwise it's just too much of a
But
burden.
also, they also want to get on that production line and start refining it and improving it early as possible.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they started the Y model 4680 in pretty low volume production as well.
Yeah. And they started
But
with the higher trims, like you're saying, makes sense. Higher margin. It'll make up for the kind of inefficiencies that you're going to start off with, right? In
yeah,
terms of
and the
margins.
lower demand to match
Yeah.
the lower supply with the higher
Yeah.
pricing. Yeah. Um,
I'm really excited about the Cybertruck. I don't even have one on order. My dad does. I told him he's going to be waiting for 4 or 5 years in Canada probably for it, but it's just so exciting. Like, every time I see a video of it in the wild, albeit it's mostly Tesla oriented or SNL or something, it's just, this is going to turn turn
oh
heads.
yeah.
It's going to be a walk. It's going to be a driving advertisement everywhere it goes.
Have you seen one in real
No,
life?
no way. No.
Me neither. I mean, I talk to people who have, and they
Okay.
say it looks like CGI in real life, and
Yeah.
it's like 10 times more stunning in person than you could ever see in anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to turn heads. It's like it's such a big vehicle as well. Just going
Yeah.
to tower over you next to the lights, and then it obviously it's so fast on top of that.
True. Yeah. And it's light because of the exoskeleton. Yeah. So there's so much
Yeah.
there. I see Richard in the comments saying they have to get it out next year, otherwise people will start losing faith. I kind of agree with that sentiment overall. I think at this point, 2023, we have to see Cybertruck deliveries. Like, I think that's kind of the line in the sand for Tesla. Like, we thought it was going to be this spring, summer, then it was fall, then it's pushed into middle next year. I think even if it's not at scale, Tesla should do whatever they can to start at least delivering the Cybertruck next year. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, there's enough doubters out there already that it will never even come into fruition. It's
Yeah,
not real. It's so just to show that it's possible, I think, and that they are serious about it, and it can be done. Would
exactly.
be yeah.
And
Otherwise, it's going to hurt.
yes, and financially speaking, no, it's not really going to hurt too much. Let's say next year, I still think they can hit whatever their 2.1 goal is for next year minus Cybertruck. But you're right. I think the Cybertruck means so much more than just the unit volume it'll give next year, which probably won't be too much anyways.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, like you say, the financials. I mean, they can hit it without basically the 4680 battery. They can still, they're still doing well. Berlin's going to ramp, and China's ramped more. Fremont's going to do a bit more. They'll still get some good numbers and good profits. But with that 4680 high volume production, they hit that, then it
yeah,
just makes all the difference. Like that's when it's going to really take shape. And supposedly the lines are like 25 gigawatt hours each of them. There's 4 of them in Austin alone. So
hmm,
100 gigawatt hours. If the Y is like 80 kilowatt hours, and
mhm.
the Cybertruck, I don't know, it's probably going to be 100 kilowatt hours. Would you say?
Probably more. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So there's easily enough batteries there for 1 million units a year, just for those 2 models on that
wow.
line. So if that ramps up high volume production, and if they hit maybe even fraction of that, maybe half of that, then that's 500,000 a year from Texas.
Yeah. Now we're talking, like, yeah, and that's, yeah. At that point, you're already like that. That's like that point where it's just you've already proven out the scalability. Now it's just like, how can you replicate these lines at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, exactly.
And then another new factory in North America to rinse and repeat again.
Well, actually, it's funny. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the new Giga Factory as I type it out here. Canada. It's apparently the rumored new Gigafactory.
Mm.
I'm not buying it until I see it signed, stamped, delivered, sealed, whatever. I have my doubts. I think Ken always gets the short end of the stick. I think it could just be using us for leverage for now. Um, do I sound like a insecure Canadian? Maybe, but it's you know, I think Tesla's new Giga. Now it'll apparently still fits into the treaty or the EV bill where all these $7,500 credits, even if they're
Mm.
imported battery packs, they can still qualify, and that would make total sense. I guess we'll get more clear guidelines on that towards the end of the year
Yeah.
from the IRS. But thoughts on the new Giga? Do you have an opinion as to where it should be
Yeah.
specifically?
I mean, like Tesla and Elon, they want locally sourced. They like the locally sourced aspect, right?
Right.
There's then things have further to be shipped, and it saves in carbon emissions and stuff. So, and it's also saves in cost. And there's a lot of resources, obviously, in Canada, right? There's tons of nickel there, like a lot of nickel, for example. And so, I mean, we're thinking like Quebec or Ontario, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think no matter what, it has to be like northeast region
Yeah.
of the US around there. And I think within like a radius of like 300 kilometers, you've
Mm-hmm.
got like 120 million people.
Yeah. Exactly.
And fairly affluent, relatively affluent people on top of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. New York,
That
Connecticut, right? Like the tri-state area, New Jersey.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people with a
Right.
lot of money. So and Texas, Texas is quite far still from there, and Texas can cover that side of America, but it just makes sense to have something more local there. Plus,
Mhm.
there's great talent there, tons of talent,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even in robotics as well, all sorts of things,
Yeah.
AI, and they're great places to live around there too.
Yeah. And
So
yes, McGill, like one of the top universities, is in Montreal in Canada. So,
right.
right, people don't really want to move if they don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. All the Ivy League colleges are around there too.
Sure.
Um, I mean, I lived in Montreal for a couple of months, and I loved it.
Oh,
It's a great place to
nice.
live.
Very nice. When was that?
um, 2017, I think. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay. Were you just
yeah,
vacationing, or you were like planning to move there? Maybe.
yeah. I did a big road trip around America for like 18 months. Just went to like 40 states, drove around, lived in them for a while, some of them, and through Canada as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I experienced a fair amount of it. And yeah, Montreal is a great place to live. And I think Tesla wants to set up in places where good talent wants to live. They
Right.
have choices. Good talent has a choice. They're like, oh well, I can work here or I can work there, but I'd rather live in that city, even though if it's
Exactly.
not Tesla. I mean,
And
you
I mean,
know,
no offense. That's kind of the problem with Giga Nevada has been where it
Reno's a bit
is.
different from Austin.
Yeah, like just attracting talent there is proven to be a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, Austin. I've been to Austin as well. Another great city to live in. So, you can understand that
Mhm.
because people don't just want to go and work somewhere. They want a life as well
Yeah.
and things to do. So, yeah, I think it's got to be in good cities as well. And then I guess the other issue is going to be regulations and unions and things as well. So, like I think Elon said that if they had built Giga Texas in California, they still wouldn't have even broken ground by now. Would have taken so long to get the permits and stuff, right? So they don't have
Nice.
time to waste. It's not like, oh yeah, cool, that'd be a great factory, but it's not gonna be ready for three more years or something. It's like, well, we kind of want to save the world now, so can't do that. And then
Yeah.
Texas, like, yeah, you can come build here.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like it's got to come down to all these things. Like where can they build quickly? Where can they and local governments can help as well on top of that. They
Yeah.
can and Texas did. I mean, Austin did help.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is why you need leverage, right? Like Elon knows this. Like you notice they never go after one factory. It's always, Tulsa versus Austin. Which one is going to give me more leverage? Well, Tulsa said they're going to give me all this, and can you match it and give me more? Like it's just
Mm,
a smart, prudent business move there. So this is why
mm,
I'm kind of insecure about it because I'm like, maybe we're just getting used for leverage here. But I guess we'll see. But by the way, Lee, like one thing that very few people talk about is the exchange rate effect. A lot of tech companies from America come to Canada, hire here because human capital is pretty much on the same level, give or take, here in Canada, maybe even higher. Some Canadians might argue, but the exchange rate is like an instant 40% off, and salaries at an absolute level aren't that different.
Mm,
So you have a net effect, a net positive there for American companies to come into Canada and invest accordingly. So especially stuff like human capital, I think makes sense for something like Montreal. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. I did some research on that as well, and it looked like salaries were more or less kind of the same as well. Yeah,
yeah,
and human capital as well. You'd expect to be on par as well. So yeah, and then but then better health benefits in Canada for
yes.
employees.
Well, yes, and we don't have to get into this because I know it's a heated topic amongst many people that watch the channel. Awesome. Well, let's spend a little bit of time. By the way, and are you okay for time here for a couple more
Yeah,
minutes?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Elon and Twitter settlement. We don't have to spend too much time on this. Whatever you feel comfortable talking about with this. It feels like everyone before this whole disastrous, apparently quote unquote disastrous production delivery report, everyone was just talking about Twitter and Elon. Do you think they settled? Do you think that makes a material effect on Tesla's stock at all? Where's your kind of head at with this whole debacle?
Yeah, I haven't been following Twitter as much as some, but yeah, I'm thinking that they'll settle and possibly Elon will just pay a little bit less.
Hmm.
I'm hoping he still buys Twitter.
Okay.
I think that's like a necessary part of his overall vision for humanity or the world or whatever that's necessary to enforce freedom of speech and keep that alive. Um, um, and yeah, I hope he does. But then he said if he doesn't, then he's going to put the money back into Tesla.
Yes, supposedly, which, can you
Supposedly,
imagine?
yeah.
Can you imagine like if Elon walks away, pays a couple $1 billion worth of a walkaway fee or something, and then has like 10 plus $1 billion, even if he puts half of that in Tesla
Yeah,
and,
he's buying at a good rate right now.
yeah,
He
exactly.
sold at
Maybe,
a good rate too.
yeah. But I don't know. I'm not sure if the court will really let him walk away from this deal. Even if he pays, it seems like he's kind of stuck with it for better or for
Mm,
worse. It seems like also there might be a deposition coming for him, and before that happens, he may just want to just settle before that. So yeah, but if you're a
so
short seller, but sorry, go ahead.
so what are your thoughts? How it's going to manifest?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a settlement that ends up happening here a little bit lower, probably still pretty close to what the agreed on price is. So I and for what it's worth, I don't think Elon will end up buying back Tesla shares with the cash. I think it's just I think that's he'll find SpaceX or something to invest that money in if he has to. That's just my thought. But being a short seller in Tesla must be a little bit scary, knowing that at any point, if after hours Elon walks away from from the settlement or whatever, and it's his prerogative, he can buy in the open market if he wants to, and he can buy back
Mm,
Tesla shares. Like being a short seller probably isn't the best idea right now. With
right.
that, and maybe it's a 3% chance or something of that happening, but that would be a huge move should that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, probably move 10% the stock, I'd say.
Yeah, 10%. Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Awesome, Lee. Appreciate your time as usual. Is there anything that you want to close off with in terms of closing remarks or anything like that, where people can get a hold of you, in touch with you, and support you should they want to?
No, just on Twitter and on my channel, yeah.
Yeah, everyone go subscribe to Tesla Economist if you haven't already. Follow Lee.
So,
Is it?
how is your overall sentiment of Tesla right now then? Given everything we're in the environment, the recession,
Yeah,
potential, where are you at with all the issue?
I
How
I'm
do you feel?
generally I'm generally very excited of where the business is. Of course, we have to detach stock and business for a second. The business is, like you said, if aggregate demand goes down, it's not going to just be a Tesla oriented issue. I would be worried like if it was Tesla specific or, EV specific even would worry me. But I think in the recession, if aggregate demand goes down, we'll see an outstanding move of relative strength into EVs. And by extension into Tesla. So not worried about that. I do. I'm kind of on the fence of worrying about 4680s and the scalability of that, but I'm really just pegging that into next year anyways and just saying, okay, let's just wait until spring and see where they go. But it is something on my mind, because if Tesla is really going to start hitting that next level of growth from 2 to 4 to 6 million, that some way or another, that's going to have to be solved here, and it'll affect timelines. And if it affects timelines, it will affect stock prices. But like I said to you last time, if anyone can solve it, I believe in the Tesla team with the EV mission and the engineers and everyone and all the human capital and all the focus that they have. If this is a problem that has to be solved anyways in humanity, I at the moment, the most belief I have is in the Tesla team. So I kind of just not rest my laurels on that, but I kind of
Mm,
have faith in that. If it's not about Elon even so much, I think a lot of people deservedly give Elon a lot of credit, but AI Day is proof of the team that Elon has built behind him and the ability for people that are world class in what they do to just run free and to adopt changes and to do whatever they deem fit to grow this tech. So business wise, to summarize, business wise, not really worried. Super excited about Cybertruck as well. Stock price wise, I still think there's some. I don't like the Fed and them still wanting to increase rates as much as they are. We need to see inflation come back down towards the end of the year. If we don't, it's going to get ugly, because the housing lag, I think, still has yet to be seen globally with what's happening there. But
all
I
right, so
mean,
you're still in real estate, right?
yes, yes.
So what are you noticing there from firsthand?
Volume is just dried up massively. So like prices a little bit for sure, but really not to the effect that I would think a 7% 30-year yield would have, mortgage note would have on the housing market just yet. But volume has just essentially dried up to like nothing. So you're seeing sellers that don't have to sell, but just casually had it on the market, just like
Right,
deciding to not entertain offers. You have the odd people that are desperate to sell that will have to sell at a discount, but you're just not seeing the flood of people that feel like they need to sell right now, because presumably a
right,
lot of them have probably locked in mortgages for long enough periods of times at low enough
sure.
interest rates. So, but this is why I think a lag is kind of what everyone is waiting on. Um, so that's my
But
thoughts.
it's the whole game theory thing we are talking about with the Fed, what they have to play with right now,
Yeah.
and like I mean they can't, the government can't afford the higher rates. Eventually, it just can't. So like something has to give somewhere eventually. But people, it's definitely starting to feel it now, right? They're feeling like, okay, recession here. Maybe we should stop spending a little bit,
Mm,
and they are pulling back a bit, and we're seeing prices come down and in commodities as well. There's deflation happening.
yeah.
So um, I think a lot of scare tactics happening, whatever they can, but they can only go through with so much at the end.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see how they go. And
Well,
and right now Tesla's price is mainly dependent on that in the short term.
did you see the UN today
Oh yeah, yeah,
begging the Federal Reserve to stop increasing rates? It's
yeah.
and the Bank of England recently started buying back bonds as well in the open market. It's unprecedented times when you go from 0% interest rates in the open market to like 4% or whatever in this short period of time. Um, they need to look at it better inflation data that's more updated, but they won't, because that's their prerogative and that's just the methodology that they follow. But if they over tighten, which I feel like they are more than willing to do, if they over tighten, things can get ugly really fast for a lot of people. I mean, the housing market is a source of a lot of retirees,
Mm,
like liquidity, right, for them to live, like pension funds aside.
sure.
So yes, I think honestly that is the kind of the last leg is the street is looking at, okay, when is the Fed going to pause rate hikes, not lower them? No one, like everyone seems to think they're going to U-turn and lower them. Maybe, but that's kind of wishful thinking. The first signal is, when are they saying, okay, enough's enough, we're going to keep it here, right? I look at rate hikes. I've said this before. Is like turning the knob on your stove, right? After a certain point, you're already on ultra high. You just have to
Mm.
wait for the pot of pasta water to boil. Like you just gotta wait, right? It doesn't matter. I can't go much higher than I already am on my stove
Mm.
already. I just have to wait now, right?
You
And
just got to
so
make
it's
sure not too much overflows at the meantime, and you don't break too much, and that you can
exactly.
maintain it.
And that's the issue. That's exactly it. Is that everyone's worried? Well, now they've ramped it up so much, and overflowing is imminent. And so I feel like if there is somehow, and I give this probably like a 30% chance now, if somehow we avoid a huge catastrophe with over tightening to end the year, and the Fed pauses rates close to where they are right now, I still think there is some breathing room here. But if the Fed goes ahead and I think they want to raise rates like another 1.5% by the end of the year to like 4.6,
Mm,
it's just nuts to me. So
mm.
we need to see inflation data support our thesis that we see that everything is prices coming down. We need to see that substantially cool month over month. So
Yeah. Well, interesting times.
interesting times indeed. Yes. Well, thank you, Lee. I appreciate you coming on and spending time with
Sure.
us here. And everyone go subscribe to Tesla Economist. And what's your handle on Twitter as well? Because you have a great Twitter account.
Just at Tesla Economist.
Perfect. You got the handle.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee, for
Brilliant.
tuning in.
All right. Okay, Yoshi. Take
Take
care.
care. Thanks, Lee.